Well, good morning. Welcome from the south side of Atlanta in beautiful Stockbridge, Georgia. I was excited when Dr. Randy Gibson and his lovely wife, Gina, asked me about doing a promo for their Onpoint chaplaincy program. What a great program. The chaplaincy program actually equips lay people to be able to minister in a way that they didn't minister before. And I can tell you, being from a small town of 140 people in northern Illinois, I went in the military. I graduated high school in 1978, and I wasn't old enough to be a police officer, and I didn't want to go to college, so I joined the Army and went into the military police. So I got on a bus in Chicago, Illinois, January the 5th of 1979, and got off that bus a couple of days later in Anniston, Alabama, Fort McClellan, Alabama, and it was snowing there too in 1979. And I did my 6 weeks of basic training for the Army, and then I had 8 weeks of military police training. And that was my first introduction to what we would consider to be a chaplain. There were chaplains there, Baptist chaplains, Catholic chaplains, Lutheran chaplains, and what a ministry they did. A lot of us I had lived in an apartment for a few months before I went in, but some of the people had never been away from home before, and the chaplain provided a great sense of relief and comfort for military personnel. And, that's not uncommon that in America especially, we think of military and chaplaincy together. The chaplaincy program was actually formed before the United States was. In North America, this tradition took hold early before the United States was founded. The practice of opening legislative sessions with prayer began with the Continental Congress, which appointed its first chaplain in 1774. Following the establishment of the U.S. Constitution, both the House of Representatives and Senate elected chaplains in 1789, a practice that has continued almost uninterruptedly since. The legislative chaplains perform ceremonial duties like daily prayers and serve symbolic functions and provide pastoral care and spiritual counsel to members, their family, and staff. So, that's in America. It started in 1774, but the history of chaplaincy goes way back before then. The story of chaplaincy starts not in a church, but on a roadside with a soldier and his cloak. The word chaplain is traditionally traced to Martin of Tours, a 4th century Roman soldier. I want you to picture this scene. Martin, an officer in an imperial army, encounters a beggar in the street who's stripped of everything. And moved by compassion, Martin takes his own thick woolen military cloak, draws his sword, and cuts it in two and gives half of it to the man. The cloak was part of his uniform, his identity and status as a soldier. By sharing it, Martin stepped outside his official duties to offer warmth, dignity, and most importantly, human connection. Our church does 50 backpacks a year and we give them out to the homeless. And so many people are thankful, but we stop and we look at them and we tell them we love them and we offer to pray for them and we give them a bag that's got food items and Bible passages and first aid and sanitation and water, and just the feeling that somebody cares. So many of these people on the side of the road, yes, some of them are there because of their own addictions. Maybe they're there because of things the world threw at them. Everybody has a different story. But we're never told about the Good Samaritan who stopped to help the man. If that man was deserving of his help or not, the man was rewarded because he helped. And so, we never know what somebody's going through, and all of us could be subject to something outside of our control that we don't understand, much like Job in the Old Testament. Job had no clue as to all the things going on when his whole life was ruined. So the cloak being a part of Martin's uniform meant that he's sharing it and he's offering human connection. He met the person in their moment of need right where they were. This ministry of presence, I want you to remember that ministry of presence, offering comfort and solidarity in a vulnerable space, is at the heart of the chaplain's calling. So you may be considering taking a program, a chaplaincy program. Make sure it's Bible-based. Onpoint, one of their tenets is that we believe the Bible is the infallible Word of God. It's not just about giving good vibes or yin and yang or coming and going. It's about sharing the gospel of Jesus Christ and meeting physical needs. And there's a cost involved. If you are to take this class or invest, you're going to be investing some money and you're going to be investing your time. Folks, we all invest our money and time into something. What greater thing than something that will cause us to be better ministers of the gospel of Jesus Christ? Paul said in Romans 8:18, "For I reckon that the suffering of this present time are not worthy to be compared with the glory which shall be revealed in us." So maybe the chaplaincy program can be the next step in your Christian walk. And maybe you won't put on a uniform and go to a hospital or ride in a police car. You will learn skills, you will learn things that people need that you might be able to use that in a family situation. You might have a wayward family member or a loved one or a coworker or somebody at school, an acquaintance that starts going through things, whether it's addictions or just mental situations going on. And this class will better prepare you to be able to lovingly come alongside this person with the presence of meeting them where they are and being able to offer something to them. So this may be the next step in your Christian walk. I don't know about you, and I don't know where you might be hearing this message from, but in America, what I see is most of our church members have heard many sermons, but they've done little study. They believe it because the pastor said it. They bring their Bible to church, and they display it, and they look at it, and then it goes in their car, it goes back home, and it doesn't get picked up again until the next time they come to church. So this is an opportunity to get into some organized and systematic theology studies. It will help you to develop your mind. It will help you with a systematic approach. And why did Paul, the Apostle Paul, when he wrote his letter to the book of Acts, the early church, Paul said that when he went to Berea from Thessalonica, that the people in Berea were more noble-minded than the people in Thessalonica. Why was that? Well, we're told in Acts that the reason that they were more noble-minded, now these were more noble-minded than in Thessalonica, for they received the word with great eagerness. Then they examined the scripture daily to see whether these things were so. That's Acts chapter 17, verse 11. So the Apostle Paul, who wrote 12, maybe 13 books in our New Testament, said people are more noble-minded when they don't just hear something and believe it, but they study the scriptures for themselves to see if it's true or not. And I actually looked up the word noble-minded. Noble-minded describes a person with an honorable, upright, and superior mind, characterized by high moral and intellectual qualities. So I want to encourage you today to get into a systematic approach of Bible study. As I said, there'll be a cost involved of your money and your time, but one day we're going to stand before the Lord, those of us that are born again, and we're going to give an account. Not to get into heaven. That is based strictly on what Jesus accomplished on the cross, and we either accept that or we don't. But works are important because our position in heaven, our rewards in heaven will be based on what we did with the gifts that God gave us. And I just can't imagine anyone standing at the beam of judgment for rewards and Jesus saying, I hate that you took time and money and wasted it on learning how to better minister to people with the gospel and meet their needs. That's just not going to happen, folks. So I encourage you, take this next step in your Christian walk. Where you go with it, that's between you and God. But I really want to encourage you with that. And so the journey of chaplain, from a roadside act of compassion to a recognized profession in our most complex institutions, isn't just a human curiosity. It's a story about a basic human need. The original act of sharing the cloak was about meeting a person in their vulnerability right where they were. And as I said, that person may be in a hospital, that person may be in an accident, that person may be in crisis, but it may be somebody who sits at a desk next to you at work. It may be a friend. It may be an acquaintance. You may see somebody melting down at a grocery store. And what better way to be prepared? That's not the time to be thinking, what do I do? What do I do? We need to have a plan. Those that fail to plan to fail. We need to have a game plan. One for sharing the gospel and meeting people's needs. And so the original act of sharing the cloak was about meeting a person in their vulnerability right where they were. The capellanus, the keeper of the cloak, that's what they refer to Martin as he cut his cloak into two to share with this beggar, was the person tasked with carrying that same spirit of compassionate presence into the heart of a secular institution. You may run into people and meet people that will never set foot into a church. The pastor will never meet them. Church members may never meet them. So I really encourage and promote the chaplaincy program. I'm proud to be a part of it. And then my years of law enforcement, I saw where chaplains stepped in and were able to fill a need for people at their darkest, most vulnerable hour. And so I just want to encourage you to look into Onpoint, the Onpoint International Chaplaincy Program. Get the training. What you do with it is your business, but you will be well equipped, better equipped than you are now. And I thank you. I love you for listening. And may God bless as we encourage one another in good works as we work toward rewards in heaven now that our salvation and our place in heaven has been taken care of because of Jesus Christ. Let's promote and encourage and love one another to better and greater works. Thank you so much for your time today. Reach out to Onpoint International Chaplaincy Program. Get involved in the class. They do it online from all over the world. We thank you, we love you, and we're praying for you, and may God richly bless.